Hi, this is Alyssa Borelli, website editor for Commercial Integrator. Today, I'm delighted to have Aaron Leiker from Haivision joining in on a discussion about the command and control room market. This is, of course, part of Commercial Integrator's Command and Control Deep Dive report in the August edition of Commercial Integrator and Security Sales and Integration. This will also be spotlighted throughout the month of August online. With over 12 years of industry experience, Aaron will touch upon key topics, such as the challenges often faced by operators and command center teams, current trends in command and control rooms, as well as cybersecurity. Welcome, Aaron. So great to have you here today.
Hey, thank you. I'm looking forward to having this conversation, and we appreciate you guys championing this topic. So,
Let's jump right into it. What are the biggest challenges faced by operators and command center teams today?
yeah, I mean, outside of the obvious, you know, challenges that they face in the day-to-day workflows, we can certainly speak more specifically to the AVIT, challenges. The biggest ones we see and really where we aim our product and solutions at is, these systems in the past have been quite inflexible. They're very, very siloed. It's very difficult to get information that might be necessary now that wasn't necessary maybe 5 years ago. We've seen, social media sentiment, differing news sources, content coming from just different places, and we've tried to make sure, like, our control room solutions kind of match that reality. I think the other biggest challenge is, in the past, it was very much a one size fits all mentality to the user interface, and just in our extensive experience, both historical and the breadth of customers we use, is there's a very, very wide range of users in these spaces, and it's very difficult to make a product that works for all of them. And where we that's why we like to be in that space, because where it's most challenging, it's also the most rewarding problem to solve.
It's definitely diverse applications across different industries too, because you have government, you have healthcare, you have the public sector, your utilities, all of that. So it's definitely quite the challenge for a lot of integrators with that.
Yeah.
How have user interfaces and user experiences in control rooms evolved over the past few years?
Um, so they've come a long way. I mean, the interface, as I mentioned, it didn't get a lot of attention. It was usually, made by one person towards the end of a project, and served up on a device that was very technologically limited, right? You just didn't have a very good tool set to build a compelling dynamic user interface. Well, with the advent of more quality commercially available tablets, but also browser-based, technologies. It allows us, who are creating these technologies, just a much better tool set, to make, really dynamic, user-friendly UIs, that work both with keyboards and mice, as well as, touch and stylus. Those are things that would have been very difficult before. Things that we can incorporate, things like real-time video into the interface, live streams from the video walls itself, into the interface. These are things that just the tool set in the past just didn't have, it wasn't available. Also, I think user interface design, UX design, is starting to be more prevalent. You see, the designers getting involved, where it used to just be whoever the programmer was, usually whoever commissioned the system and had some idea of how all the AV devices function together would program it. But that person wasn't necessarily also a UX designer or, UI designer. Well, now you have, like, for instance, we have a whole team of people who do nothing but that, and they all have their role in this, just to make a really complex series of technologies work seamlessly together. So yeah, the user interfaces come a long way. It's something we take a lot of pride in, and we try to make it give folks the most capability, but the in a easy to use packaging. Because it's one thing to have a feature, it's another thing to have a feature that's usable. Um, it's a big distinction. That's what makes it complex. That's the most complex part of making these products. It's very easy to make a feature. It is very difficult to make a complex feature easy. That's a whole different challenge.
It's definitely a challenging market for integrators, that's for sure.
Yeah. Yes.
So, what are some innovative uses of video technology you've seen that improve operational efficiency in these spaces?
Yeah, so I think where we've aimed a lot of our innovation is making sure we have a tool set for our integrators to go get the content wherever the customer's content may be, whether that's a virtual machine, something that doesn't have an HDMI output, or a website, or if that source is, geographically quite far away, not just inside the building, but maybe in another country, right? That information needs to be able to get places as well. So we make a series of very reliable, low latency secure encoders that kind of help, obtain that. So our goal is just, we make sure that, no matter what the source, if it produces video, it can get to the product. I think that's a big source of innovation, specifically when you try to do that low latency and securely. Um, I think the other thing is, I'm not, I don't think we were the first to do this, but I think we were one of the first to do this easily, in a way that, a typical end user with minimal training could do it, was basically the ability to script in your own features and buttons into the user interface. We call this concept behaviors. But essentially, we've curated, a list of actions that a user may want to put together, and they can essentially author their own workflow buttons, into this, and it allows these systems to become very flexible and dynamic. And it also frees up our integrator from having to feel like they need to do that every time, because no one wants to come out and hard code in a button every time the operations center wants to change the slightest thing. Maybe the global call today was at 8 a.m. but the next week it's at 8:30. That shouldn't be a major thing. That should be something anyone could change. Maybe you want mics on for this, in this section of the room. Maybe you don't, right? Those should be things that are accessible to users so that they can, the system can adapt to their needs quickly. And even though the integrators generally want and are quite responsive to the customers, no one wants to do any, little tiny things. Those adjustments, what tends to happen in our experience is just no one does anything. And that's kind of the worst situation. That's not good for integrators. It's not good for the end user either, right? So, building in these things, these kind of dynamically changing user interface elements has been a big thing in my opinion.
Definitely, yeah, especially for these 24/7 command centers too. Like it's often challenging for integrators
Yeah,
to even sort of go into those spaces.
right, right.
How do you ensure the cybersecurity of video wall systems in command and control rooms?
Yeah, it's a very big topic. It goes quite deep and wide. I mean, first it's making good supply chain choices. Um, we're making sure we're choosing products that are coming from, reputable companies and reputable locations. Um, and also we take the same kind of, I would say, supply chain approach to our own code. So we develop our own code, and we follow, clean code and the right type of methodologies to keep it, from, malicious actors, right? But also just in product design. So we try to make sure, our product is following the IT best practices that are set by groups like, NIST and, other risk management frameworks that are out there. Um, and we take the approach ourselves of trying to blend into the security apparatus of the end user. So essentially they're setting the security standard and we're following it. Um, and that's it's very challenging to do, but it's the right way to do because it makes sure that if they've institutionalized the use of a particular antivirus or patching rhythm or credentialing rhythm or even things like using a specific TLS cert to encrypt their traffic, that our product is going to respond to that. And we're not forcing security policies onto users because what we see like from a lot of our other folks in the industry is they're making security choices, but they're not necessarily the security choices the end user would have made, right? Um, and we try to make sure because we're working with some of the biggest, most security conscious organizations on the planet. We know they know what they're doing, and we want to make sure we fit into that. And then other things like we build KVM products to keep the computers away from the people, right? That's where I know a lot of folks, a lot of companies, they do a lot of cybersecurity training, but things happen. Someone finds the thumb drive in the parking lot and finds it convenient and uses it for whatever reason. But if the computing elements are away from the users, and are only allowed to do the things the users should be allowed to do, it lowers the risk, um, uh, the risk profile of that particular room. So it's a lot of things. It's supply chain. It's how you develop the product. It's how you weave the product into the security of the customer. It's how you design the project. So the integrator designer is a big part of this as well. But you have to kind of fight it on all those fronts to keep the product secure.
Yeah, cybersecurity is such a huge topic. So thank you for doing a high-level overview of that. How has the integration of real-time data visualization changed the landscape of these command and control rooms?
I think the biggest thing I've seen is even in operation centers with traditionally quite static information, you're starting to see them fuse in other other situational awareness sources, um, cameras, um, web, web analytics, you name it. Just there's a much broader range of information out there, and the ability for the system to go react to when they need that has been. And I know I've mentioned this in the previous question, but I think this is the answer to this question as well. But just being able to dynamically choose the information that's relevant at the time, that was a very big limitation for systems, in the past. You had to basically design what you wanted to see from the very origin of the project, and that just doesn't necessarily fit in the reality of today, where the data source might be a streaming platform that you never used before, or a social media platform that you never planned on using before. It just depends on what it is. All that's different on depending on what type of operations center it is. But we've definitely seen the advent of just a proliferation of data sources where it used to be quite simple and limited.
Yeah, gone are the days of those static maps and radios.
Yes, yes.
Is there anything else you'd like to add? Do you have any closing thoughts?
Yeah, I think we're going to make sure we stay on the forefront of all of these topics. UI UX design is a very important part of this. I think making sure the product is dynamic enough to satisfy the needs of least educated or most basic user of the system, but all the way up through the most advanced, power user of an application. I think it's really important, and to do all that securely. And then make sure we're able to connect operations center work with folks outside the operations center. It's one thing to do it via these web conferencing platforms, and it's another thing to do it via connecting actual command centers and sharing beyond what that's capable of. So we're going to stay on continue innovating, but do it in a responsible way. So,
Thank you, Aaron, so much for joining me today, and thanks again for sharing all your insights.
anytime. Thank you so much.
Please check back on commercialintegrator.com throughout the month of August, and of course in print for all things command and control related.